If you follow political news, you may have seen our next guest in the newspaper recently. She was dragged out of Virginia's House of Delegates when she was giving testimony as a member of the public there. Although she may not be just a member of the public for long, she is running for that chamber, Virginia's House of Delegates. She is running in, West Virginia's House of Delegates. She is running for West Virginia's 7th District. And she was dragged off the floor of West Virginia's House of Delegates because she talked about the pernicious effect of campaign contributions on the political process. And that made her a hero to a lot of people. So first of all, Lissa Lucas, thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks very much for having me.
Secondly, when this dramatic gesture took place, when you, a public citizen, were removed from the People's Chamber for making your comments, you were speaking in opposition to a bill that some people believe gave special privileges or made life easier for oil and gas companies rather than for the public at large. Maybe that's a good place to start as we get into your position on the issues and why you're running. Tell us a little bit about that bill and why you oppose it.
Well, it's not a matter of belief, really. Objectively, it allows corporations to seize property from minority mineral rights owners. Essentially, the companies don't necessarily want to do their due diligence and find all the owners. They don't want to go through a process that would allow due process protections for mineral owners. They would simply prefer to force mineral owners to sign leases against their wills, and that's what this bill is.
So what you did in going in there was you talked about what the oil and gas companies, the contributions and so on that they might have made to certain members of that chamber, and that makes sense to me. Now let's talk a little bit about your candidacy. Tell us what the 7th District is like.
We're a very beautiful, very rural district. We're in the middle of the Marcellus Shale, which is where the fracking invasions are occurring, and this district has been a gas and oil district for a long, long time, much before this more recent boom. So people here kind of remember what it was like before it was driven by out-of-state corporations that had no respect for property rights and no respect for the people who live here.
Now, I know a lot of people watching this program, Lissa, are going to say, well, that sounds like Trump country to me, and Lissa Lucas sounds like she's a progressive Democrat. And does somebody out of that mold, whether you call it the Bernie mold or the progressive mold, even have a chance, much less a Democrat in general? I think the incumbent delegate, I think, got 66% of the vote. He's a Republican. How can somebody like you win in a district like that?
Well, first of all, I don't care who people voted for in the last election. I don't think that people deserve more or less help or more or fewer rights depending on who they voted on. I just don't care. Secondly, Republicans and Democrats alike should be standing up for property rights. And, I've been messaged from local Republicans who are wanting to put my yard signs up in their yards because they want a candidate who's going to fight for them. And that's really what people want.
Yeah, well, I think that's definitely true. I also, by the way, just to be clear about where I stand, I'm appalled by liberals who think that people should somehow be punished for the way the majority of their district voted. I agree with you. Everybody deserves representation. Everybody deserves a fair shake. And I'll tell you, Lissa Lewis, I come from the old school that says if you don't win an election, not meaning you personally, but if your candidate doesn't win an election, then they didn't make the sale. You know, I mean, you're out there to tell people why you're going to represent them and fight for them. So if you're going to fight for the people of your district, I think you've got a really good shot at it. Now, as we record this on Thursday, West Virginia is experiencing a teacher walkout, if my information is correct. Is that right?
Yes, all 55 counties are staging a walkout Thursday and Friday.
So what's that all about, and where do you stand on the issues that teachers are fighting for with this walkout?
Well, I stand with the teachers and the public employees. They have not received raises. They have instead, over the past few years, received increased PEIA premiums. That's their insurance. Now, it's not fully funded. Their premiums have been going up so much that the little extra money that they get is not keeping up with inflation, much less their deductibles. They've been getting worse off every year. And so I think now the membership has had enough, and they've told the union leaders that they want to do something. And what they've decided to do right now is this 2-day walkout, and we'll see if the legislature responds. I know there are people really fighting for them in the legislature, and some people who really aren't. One of the issues actually ties into severance tax. For example, the gas industry. West Virginia has a lower severance tax than most other energy producing states. So one solution in order to find the money to provide raises and to fully fund PEIA would be to raise the severance tax. But of course, so many of our legislators receive money from gas and oil interests and other energy interests. They don't want to do that.
Well, and I love the fact that, again, I love the fact that you called them out on it. Now, let's talk about a subject that is very much in the news right now, and where people keep saying it's going to be hard to find common ground. Let's talk about guns. Now, you come from you're a part of the world that has very large percentage of gun ownership. People have strong feelings about guns both ways. Do you think it's possible to come together and forge a common sense approach to guns that somehow makes both sides feel they can live with that?
I think so. I mean, people around here love guns. They love to hunt. I love to hunt. People supplement their pantry by hunting every year and can deer meat and freeze it. And boy, there's nothing better than being able to eat something that you've harvested off your own property. But at the same time, the NRA, for example, is an organization that represents gun manufacturers, not gun owners. And I think that when 90% of people agree that we need expanded background checks, for example, and we can't seem to manage to get together on that, it sort of shows what the money that the NRA pours into our political system is doing. And I think that if we can get the money out, then we can have an intellectually honest conversation. I mean, I don't know what the solution is to stop this violence. I know it has to stop, but when we can agree on so many steps that we can take, but we can't seem to accomplish them, I think that we need to get the money out and start fighting to have a real conversation.
Well, I think that's a very sensible approach because, it's been framed by those big money interests as, and I think a lot of people buy into this, as they're trying to take away your freedoms, your freedom to own a gun, your freedom for recreational shooting or shooting for hunting or whatever. But at I think that's the gun manufacturers and their lobbyists, led by the NRA, are convincing some people of that, and that if you bring down the noise level a little bit, that people, I think, but your district, and I don't, I think people can probably get behind, yeah, we should have background checks. I think on your website you talk about, people with mental health problems, domestic abusers, people on the no-fly list, and all of that. I think, if we can start getting people to agree that, yeah, these are some, like you say, 90% of people believe we should expand background checks. I think the more you find points of consensus, once you get the paid shills out of the picture, the more you can start to make real progress. At least it seems to me. Does that make sense for you in your district?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that there are things that we can do right now that we agree on, but I think the real problem, and this, I mean, I'll keep bringing it up again and again and again, is that we have so much money in our politics that we're not able to accomplish the things that people think we should accomplish. What we're accomplishing are things that corporations want to accomplish. And so sometimes those interests overlap and we get some good things, but mostly they don't. Mostly all our income is going to the top 1%, all our new income. So we really need it. We could fix a lot of the problems in this country if we could get the corporate influence out of politics and we're assured that our representatives were actually going to fight for us instead of for their corporate donors.
So how does that resonate in your district, Lissa Lewis? How does that go over if you tell people, what always gets me is that a lot of the people you talk to talk about how government is trying to run their lives and take their liberties away, but they don't think about the many different ways that corporations are taking over democracy, taking people's liberties away. Or like you point out, even with the roads in your district, freight trucks do most of the non-weather related damage, and yet everybody else is supposed to pay for it or deal with the consequences. How do people react when you talk to them about corporations and what they're doing to us?
Well, that's an interesting conversation to have with people, because a lot of people here, they worry about big government intruding in their lives. And my point has been essentially that I worry about that too. But what's happening right now is that corporations are using government as a tool to control our lives, rather than having people who represent us trying to make things better for us. We're having corporations who are only concerned with their own bottom lines. And so that's really a good conversation to have, and people do relate to that. I mean, I can't tell you how many Republicans really want to get the lobbyists out of our government. Right now in West Virginia, we have our governor installed a quote-unquote citizen volunteer named Bray Carey, who's on the EQT board. That's a fracking company. He's an unpaid volunteer, so he gets to come and go as he pleases. He's not subject to ethics rules like lobbyists are, and that's who our governor is having. He gets the ear of the governor, while the public gets, like I got, a minute and 45 seconds to try to make a case.
Yeah, I don't even know if you got the whole minute and 45 seconds. I think,
did.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, so what's the timetable for you now? When's the voting happen?
Well, I don't have a primary opponent, so the voting doesn't happen until November.
Oh, okay. Well, that part's good. Now, I think what Democrats around the country and progressives around the country ought to remember is that that we've seen now all these off-year elections that everybody's talking about, that Democrats are so excited about because Democrats have been winning in Trump country. There was just one, I can't remember, was it Kentucky? There was just one the other day. But everywhere that the people are winning, Democrats are winning in Trump country, they're doing it with a lot of times with progressive messages and a lot of times with local issues like the roads, like some of the other things we've been talking about here today. So where can people go to find out more about your campaign?
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, that, I don't really want a blue wave. I want a clean wave. And if we get Republicans in office who are not taking money from lobbyists and who take action to get the money out, I would be very happy. So,
all right.
I'm just saying, like, we can all make the choice to vote for someone who's not taking that money. And I don't really care at this point if it's a Democrat or a Republican, so long as, because we can have an honest conversation if we're at least both working for the people. But to find out about my campaign, you can go to hollerfromthehollers.com or lissalucas.com. That's Lissa, Lissa, with 2 S's, lucas.com. And I'm running as a Democrat, but the West Virginia Democratic Party I'm not super happy with. I don't think any progressive is happy with the West Virginia Democratic Party.
And here I've been mispronouncing your name all along, and you're so polite. You didn't even correct me. Well, I apologize for that, and I admire your politeness. I was raised to be polite too, but I think I would say something next time. Yell at me, okay? But Lissa Lucas, thank you for your good work, and thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks very much. It was nice talking to you.
Same here.